spoon hits the floor. One baby jolts like the room just exploded. Arms fling out, face tightens. Crying starts instantly from the belly, urgent and total. Another baby hears the same sound, turns for half a second, and goes right back to staring at a patch of sunlight on the wall. And within seconds, the adults in the room start telling a story. This one is easy. That one is sensitive. This one is calm. That one is already dramatic. But that story is usually too shallow, because in moments like this, you may not be seeing personality in the way people think you are. You may be watching two tiny nervous systems meeting the same world in completely different ways. And the difference often starts somewhere far deeper than attitude, discipline, or whether anyone is doing it right. It starts in how the baby's brain and body register the world itself. That matters because a lot of parents quietly carry guilt around this. If their baby is calm, they wonder if they just got lucky. If their baby is intense, they wonder what they did wrong. And everyone around them tends to make it worse by treating baby behavior like a character review. But babies are not performing a personality for us. They are signaling, constantly. And what looks random, exaggerated, or mysterious is often deeply meaningful. The common assumption is simple. Some babies are just born chill, and some are born difficult. That feels true because the difference can show up so early. One newborn settles with a gentle bounce. Another seems to react to every transition, every light, every sound, every delay. One baby can move through the day without much protest. Another seems to hit overwhelm again and again. So of course adults reach for the obvious explanation. That's just who they are. But developmental psychology has been challenging that simple story for a long time. Researchers Alexander Thomas and Stella Chess, in their landmark work on temperament, showed that babies do come into the world with different patterns, different levels of activity, different intensity, different adaptability, different sensitivity to change. In other words, babies are not blank emotional pages. But here's the part people often miss. Temperament is not a verdict. It is a starting pattern. It does not mean one baby is better. It does not mean one baby is more advanced. And it definitely does not mean a highly reactive baby is choosing chaos. It means the baby's system may be registering the world at a different volume. That's why a small shift can feel small to one baby and enormous to another. The colder wipe, the brighter room, the pause before feeding, the face they don't recognize, the sound that came too suddenly. For one baby, those things pass through. For another, they land like an alarm. Jerome Kagan's work on high-reactive infants made this especially fascinating. He found that some babies responded more strongly to unfamiliar sights, sounds, and sensations very early in life. More movement, more crying, more visible arousal, not because they were spoiled, not because anyone had taught them to overreact. Their nervous systems were simply more sensitive to novelty and stimulation from the beginning. That means the baby who seems not calm may not be harder in the moral sense at all. They may just be feeling more quickly, more deeply, more all at once. And when you realize that, the whole emotional meaning of their behavior starts to change. Because now, the crying is not proof of manipulation. The clinginess is not proof of weakness. The startle is not proof that something is wrong with their character. It is information. It is the nervous system saying, this is a lot. That's the first layer. But the next layer is even more important. Because babies are not only born with different thresholds, and they are also born astonishingly unfinished. A baby can feel stress before they can understand it. They can be overwhelmed before they can organize the feeling. They can be flooded before they have any internal way to bring themselves back down. That's because the parts of the brain involved in self-regulation are still under construction. The higher systems that help an older child pause, interpret, and recover are not fully available yet. So when a baby becomes distressed, they don't just need comfort emotionally. They need help biologically. This is where calm really begins to make sense. Calm is not just the absence of crying. It is the gradual development of regulation. And regulation at first does not happen alone. It happens between people. This is why attachment science matters so much here. Mary Ainsworth's work, and later decades of research showed that babies are constantly learning from the pattern of responses they receive, not from perfection, not from never being upset. From what happens next. Are they noticed? Are they helped? Are they met? Does someone return? Donald Winnicott called this good enough caregiving, and that phrase is more profound than it sounds. Babies do not need flawless adults. They need adults who repair, return, and help them recover often enough that the world begins to feel workable. That's a very different standard from perfection. And for many parents, it's a huge relief. Because the real question is not, how do I make my baby never react? The real question is, what is my baby's system like? And how can I help it come back to safety? That's what you're doing when you pick them up before the cry turns frantic. When you lower your voice. When you sway in a rhythm that matches and then softens their intensity. When you repeat the same bedtime cues night after night. When you notice the point where stimulation stops being exciting and starts being too much. Those moments can look ordinary from the outside. Inside the baby, they are architecture. The Still Face Experiments by Edward Tronick captured this in a way that's hard to forget. When a caregiver suddenly stops responding and becomes emotionally blank, even for a short time, the baby starts trying to reestablish the connection. They look, signal, strain, protest. And when that responsiveness doesn't come, the baby's distress rises. Not because they are being dramatic, but because their developing system depends on that relational feedback to stay organized. In plain language, your face helps shape their state. Your voice helps shape their state. Your timing helps shape their state. For a baby, connection is not extra, it is regulation. And this is where the story gets even deeper. Over time, babies start building expectations about how the world works. Not in words, in patterns. When discomfort is often followed by relief, the brain begins to predict relief. When uncertainty is often followed by a familiar voice, the body begins to brace less violently. When overwhelm is met with containment instead of chaos, the baby doesn't just feel better in the moment. Their system starts learning a new rule. Maybe this feeling can end. Maybe I can come back from this. Maybe the world is intense, but not endless. That's one of the hidden roots of calm. Not a personality medal, a learned bodily expectation that distress is survivable. And suddenly, something parents often misread becomes almost sacred. The baby who cries hard when overstimulated is not too much. That baby may be revealing a more sensitive alarm system that needs more careful co-regulation. The baby who settles quickly is not necessarily more emotionally healthy in every sense. They may simply have a nervous system that filters stimulation more easily, or a body that returns to baseline faster. And sometimes quiet can fool people too. A baby who is very still and undemanding may be genuinely content, or they may be conserving energy, less expressive by temperament or harder to read. So calmness itself is not the full story. The deeper question is always about engagement, recovery, and connection. That's an important reframe because many parents of intense babies feel judged in a way parents of easygoing babies often don't. They hear comments like, "Mine never did that." They get advice that assumes all babies are built the same. And slowly, they start interpreting normal differences in nervous system sensitivity as evidence of their own failure. But a more honest interpretation would sound like this: your baby is not giving you a hard time. Your baby may be having a hard time. That is not a slogan. It is a developmental truth. And once you see it, even frustrating moments begin to look different. The baby who melts down during every transition may not hate the car seat, the bath, or the stroller itself. They may struggle with abrupt sensory changes and unfinished predictions. The shift from warm to cold, dry to wet, arms to mattress, bright to dim, moving to still. Their system has to cross those bridges more carefully. Some babies cross them easily. Some need a guide. That doesn't mean the guide caused the sensitivity. It means the guide becomes part of how the sensitivity is managed. And this is why two truths have to live together at the same time. First, babies do come with real biological differences. Second, relationships shape what those differences become. That balance matters. Because without the first truth, parents blame themselves for everything. Without the second truth, we miss the incredible power of everyday care. The early months are not fate, but they are foundation. So when does a pattern deserve a little more attention? not when a baby simply cries a lot, not when they're spirited, intense, or easily startled. Those can all exist within normal variation. What matters more is the pattern around the reaction. Can the baby recover with support, even if it takes time? Do they show moments of connection, curiosity, eye contact, and settling in between hard moments? Does the caregiver's presence make a difference, even gradually? Those are encouraging signs. What's more worth noticing is when a baby seems persistently unable to settle no matter what, or so shut down that they rarely signal or engage at all. When the body seems constantly rigid or unusually floppy, when feeding and sleep are repeatedly overwhelmed by distress, when comfort almost never changes the state, or when the baby's responsiveness feels strikingly absent rather than simply calm. Those are the kinds of patterns that deserve a closer conversation with a pediatrician or developmental professional. Not because panic is the right response, because attention is. And that distinction is everything, because this subject is not really about labeling babies as easy or difficult. It's about learning how to read the earliest emotional language human beings have. Before words, babies speak in arousal, in gaze, in tension, in rhythm, in protest, in recovery. And if you know what you're looking at, unordinary moments start to feel almost extraordinary. The flailing after the spoon drops, the sudden tears when you leave the room, the way one baby arches away from noise while another leans toward it, the way one melts into a shoulder and another fights sleep like it's a threat. These are not random quirks. They are clues. Clues about sensory thresholds, clues about regulation, clues about trust, prediction, and the developing conversation between brain, body, and caregiver. So why are some babies calm and others are not? Because babies do not enter the world with equal sensitivity to stimulation. Because some nervous systems ignite faster and recover slower. Because the developing brain is learning moment by moment, whether distress leads to chaos or to help. Because calm is not just something a baby has. It is something a baby grows into, through biology, through experience, and through thousands of tiny interactions that teach the body what safety feels like. And maybe the most moving part is this. When you soothe a baby, you are not just ending a cry. You are participating in the formation of their inner world. You are helping build the pathway between alarm and relief, between disorganization and return, between feeling something huge and discovering that huge feelings can be survived. That is why the difficult baby and the easy baby should never be treated like simple opposites. Each is revealing a different beginning. Each deserves to be understood, not judged. And each ordinary moment is doing more developmental work than it appears. If there's a baby behavior you used to misread and now see differently, tell me in the comments. I'd love to know what changed for you. And if you want more psychology beneath the everyday moments of baby life, subscribe. This channel is for people who know there is always something deeper happening than it first seems.